Hello, whiskey folk. It's Roy. It's 10:15 on Thursday night again, and welcome to everyone on another live stream. And welcome if you're watching this on the replay as well. Tonight, the theme is roughly, just let me mute this, apologies. Tonight, the theme is more or less an Irish theme. Obviously, St. Patrick's Day is coming up this weekend, and I thought I'd take the opportunity just to kind of not really celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but more kind of use it to celebrate and talk a wee bit about Irish whiskies, and specifically the type of Irish whiskies that I particularly enjoy. And to kind of talk a wee bit about the history and things like that. The history, as far as I'm aware, I'm not an expert on any whiskey, but I'm certainly not an expert on Irish whiskey. But I do have a fondness for single pot still Irish whiskey. I find it really quite intriguing. I find it quite a unique thing, and I find it amazing from a history perspective as well, because theoretically it shouldn't exist, but it does. It's managed to survive, and we'll talk a wee bit about that. I do have guests tonight. I'm really excited about that. I've been watching these guys for a little while. You might think it's just one guy, but it's a team of two. It's just one on camera and the other one behind the camera. They have taken their whiskey passion from Instagram and Twitter and migrated into the YouTube platform about a year ago. And we can see that they're putting a completely new, creative, good, fun spin on the kind of whiskey tube genre. But at the same time, keeping it quite educational and fun at the same time. So I'm really loving their content just now, and I'm excited to introduce you to those guys a bit later if you haven't already happened upon them. And that is Ed and Evan from TopWhiskies. So I'll introduce you to those guys a wee bit later. What I'll do just now is I'll just jump in and speak to you guys, do a bit of a roll call, say hello, find out who's in, and welcome you all on this Thursday night live. We have Travis, who was in nice and early. It's a pleasure to see you there, Travis. It was nice to see you in, chatting to the other guys before I even went live. Jason as well, Scotch for Dummies. I'm going to guess that the Scotch for Dummy this time is Drew. I'm going to guess it's Drew. Tell me if I've got that right. Who else do we have in? We've got Daydreaming, Andrew. Okay, a pleasure to welcome you in, because I know it's super early in the morning for you. Lovely to see you. We have Amy. Hi, Amy. Good to see you again. That's Amy's husband's wife. We have Scott, Kilted Moose. Always a pleasure to welcome you in, Scott. Hoagie Bear, fantastic. My friend from East Kilbride, Roy Evans. We were just visited Whiskey Festival at the weekend. We might get a chance to talk about that a wee bit later. Michael Hay, Mikey, good to see you in, my friend. Cian O'Hara, Tony Evans, fantastic. Sid Martin, good to see you, Sid. Gregor McQuee or G McQuee, good to see you in again, Gregor. Richie, good to see you in. Everybody's piling in. No questions thrown directly at me yet that I can see. Simple Diversion, good to welcome you in, boys. It's nice to see you. Rob and, oh dear, what's your buddy's name? Put me out my misery, guys. Fantastic to welcome you here. It's nice to have you. Mark Tedford, that's a new name. Mark, you're very welcome in here. Nice to see you, Mark. Santa Cruzan. Chris, wonderful to welcome you in again. What I notice with these roll calls that I do, and it's more extreme now and it's more acute, because YouTube is allowing us. It's a fantastic feature, and it's been a long time coming. They're allowing us to participate in the live chat, or they're allowing us to read the live chat after the event. So you can go back and watch the video on the replay, and you see the live chat as it happens, which is super cool. But I did that last week. I just muted myself and I just watched the live chat, and it was really cool to do that. But it did give me a stab of anxiety, because there was a ton of people came in that I didn't even spot that they'd come in to say hello, friends, people I didn't give a shout out or whatever. It was a busy chat last week, and I did feel a bit of guilt. So I apologize if there's guys coming in and I don't get a chance to say hello. It's becoming more and more difficult to get a chance to say hello to everybody, but it's an absolute pleasure to have you all in, and I do watch it after the event and try and catch the chat. I've got Fritz Smith. There's another new name. Fritz, welcome in, my friend. Willie Dollier, fantastic to see you back again. Brent Murphy, Brent, good to see you back. Apu de Geest, fantastic, Apu. I've missed you the last couple of weeks. Good to see you in again. Connor Strang, my A student, Connor Strang. Good to see you in, Connor. Keith Rose, Keith, welcome in. Alan K, fantastic. Metalman71 again, good to see you back. And my friend WelshToro, wonderful Welsh. So I can see that there's a lot of the regulars coming back in. It's always super reassuring to see you guys. And I can see a lot of new names as well, which is really exciting. We're sitting at about 60 to 65 people, it looks like. So it's already starting to get a little bit busy. The Whiskey Rev, my compatriot, sidekick, ally, and in some cases mentor, the Whiskey Rev is moderating tonight. So if you find that I'm not able to pick up questions that you're throwing at me, copy in the Whiskey Rev as well. Just hit the @ symbol at the Whiskey Rev. And if, again, of course, if you've got something that's an absolute burning question that has to be answered, use the super chat function for that. Aqvavitae. Travis Souders is saying, let TopWhiskies know I have been really enjoying the longer videos as compared to the 60-second ones. They were good too. Travis, absolutely. I'll be talking to the boys about that a wee bit later. And I agree with you. The last few videos from those guys have been super enjoyable. Hoagie Bear. I could totally second your comment on the chat. Many participants, unfortunately, it means turbo chat. One of the detriments of success, I suppose. Well, I know it's difficult, but we just need to fathom kind of different little tricks and dynamics and mechanics to kind of make it so that we can still communicate and things. And one of the things I thought about doing is I'm going through the chat. If I do spot questions that I feel should have deserved an answer on the live, I'll maybe just kind of write them down and have a short segment in the next live. I know that just uses up more time, obviously, to try and answer some of the questions that way and the ones that I missed. And especially kind of just give shout outs to folk that deserve shout outs. I like to welcome in new names. I like to welcome in, I like to welcome back the guys that have been regulars. I'm enjoying all of it. Gary's Whiskey Reviews in, Jez Batty, my friend Jez, fantastic. Varying Viewpoint, Jason Fisk, Malt Review. On Saturday, when we went to the Fife Whiskey Festival, I had the pleasure of finally meeting, after knowing Whiskey Rover, he's in here as Malt Review, Jason, for a number of years on social media and reading his content and kind of building up this idea who I thought this guy was. He's a co-editor for Malt Review as well, one of the best and most opinionated, I would say, blogs and review sites out there. But I was at the Fife Whiskey Festival and I had the chance to actually shake hands with Jason and spend a bit of time with him. And I have to say, it was probably the highlight of the festival for me. He was an absolute gentleman, one of the nicest whiskey guys you could meet. He turned up with his kind of volunteer apron on, and out of the pockets, he produced a bottle of whiskey, a decent-sized, very generous sample of an old Glenkeith, a kind of tongue-in-cheek thing for me, because the Nass Glenkeith that I tried a few weeks ago on a live, I had tried, and I didn't really get along with it that well, despite him saying that for a £20 Nass no-age statement, young whiskey, it was quite decent. So a kind of tongue-in-cheek thing, he had this sample for me. But together with my friend Roy's Whiskey, who's in here tonight as well, he also then brought over his friend Andy Purslow, who's known on Twitter as Ardbaggy, and the two of them shared 3 or 4 absolutely transcendent, fantastic drams with us. It was fantastic, and it was a pleasure to spend some time with those two guys and actually meet them after knowing them on social media for so long. An absolute highlight of the festival. It was a fantastic day out, fantastic festival. Really well done to Justine and Karen, the girls who really organised that whole event. Just fantastic to see. Fantastic to see it so well attended, so busy as well by trade and visitors. George Kaplan, good to see you in, George. No worries, don't know how you can keep up with the flying chats anyway. Well, I can't, and I wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for the Whiskey Rev. He literally is sending through all of the kind of really important, pertinent messages, or the ones that he can spot as well, because it's obviously flying just as fast for him as well. Whiskey Throttle, Daniel, is driving and listening. Good for you, Daniel. Just be careful there, big guy, will you? WelshToro is saying, that's right, Roy, little tricks and dynamics. Yeah. Okay, good. Connor Strang has just shouted quiz. I take it, Connor, you're up for the quiz tonight. That'd be fantastic. I'm going to put your name down. And anyone else that wants to participate in the quiz, rather than me getting to the point of the quiz and trying to work out who it's going to be, just in block capitals, I just put at theWhiskyRev, at Aqvavitae, whatever, quiz, and let me know that you want to participate, and we'll work out who that's going to be. But of course, we have a guest, two guys this time, and it's the first time I've had two guys on at the same time, and they'll be participating in the quiz. So whoever wants to go up against Ed and Evan from Top Whiskies, just shout out. GoHabs is saying, who's the guest today? GoHabs, it's Top Whiskies. As I mentioned earlier, Ed and Evan from Top Whiskies, a YouTube channel, Instagram account, very, very big on Instagram, and also on Twitter. Apu Dugist is saying, money, the only problem with whiskey is that it sucks our money dry. It does. There's just too much whiskey that is good. They should bring the quality down. That's right. That's right. Brings me to reminds me about something that actually, Apu, because I had a message through, a question sent through to me on Patreon from Mikey Retromash, and Mikey asked me specifically about that, about spending and things. And I have to be honest, I think I buy more whiskey than I consume, definitely, because the whiskey is just kind of building, the bottles build and build and build all the time. But if I didn't have whiskey, if I didn't have that hobby that kind of wrapped around my life and fitted around my lifestyle just now, the money would probably go somewhere else. I would find something to do with it. I'm really finding it very pleasurable to have this whiskey there and to share it with anybody who comes along to the house and send samples or whatever it might be. There's no whiskey arrives in this house that doesn't get shared. I would suggest there's never been a bottle of whiskey that's come into my house and not been shared. So I do really enjoy that. But Mikey specifically asked, he said, I'd be interested to know what your whiskey buying habits are. Do you set yourself a budget for how much to spend each month? Unfortunately, no, just the money that I have. Or is it more sporadic than that? What's your split between buying from whiskey websites, auctions, airports and supermarkets, etc.? I think you mentioned that some of your bottles were gifted to you. It always impresses me just how generous the whiskey community is. It really is a social drink. You're absolutely right, Mikey. So what I would say is that I buy from all of those places. The supermarkets are probably the least likely to get money from me, because they've got the least stuff to intrigue my interest, because most of the stuff that's in a supermarket I've probably tried, and the new stuff that's coming into a supermarket is going to be non-age statement, 40% ABV, and probably not pointed at me. It's going to be pointed more to meet a price point, and for people that are getting into whiskey and want to explore it, and 40% ABV is strong enough, thank you very much. So I tend to spend very little of it in a supermarket. Airports, again, it's a struggle to buy decent stuff at airports. It's all exclusive stuff that's not great. No age statements everywhere. It's all marketing and packaging, and there's less and less in airports that's pointed towards me, but you can still usually find something, and you might even be able to pick up. Recently, I went through Edinburgh Airport and found Lagavulin at £40 or £42 or something like that, Lagavulin 16. So it's good just to pick up shelf fillers like that at a decent price, but not much more than that I'm finding. There were some nice Loch Lomans and Glen Scotias and things. I would say most of the time I'm buying it from whiskey specialists, So in town, it's Good Spirits Company. There's a few other specialists dotted around Scotland. I'm buying sometimes, occasionally, maybe once or twice, 3 times a year at auction. And the rest of the time would be through an online specialist. It's great in the UK. We can literally go onto Amazon and buy it and get it delivered the next day on Prime. We can go onto Master and Malt, and we can go onto the Whisky Exchange. And those 2 places, as well as a few other online places, that's not the only 2, have a good selection and have, a lot of... Amazon's just going to get most of the standard stuff, whereas the 2 specialists, you can find most of the available stuff. Hey, Rob's in from Whiskey in the Six. Aqvavitae, what's up, brother? Fantastic to see you, Rob. Do you like my t-shirt this evening? This is about the 3rd time I've worn this on a live, actually, but the alternative tonight was a Jim Beam t-shirt, and I didn't want to be seen to be wearing a brand. Okay, so before I burn too much more time, it's not going to make nothing. I want to talk about the whiskies that I'm going to taste tonight, because I absolutely love them. And I sat down with these 3 whiskies last night. I just did a little measure, and I went through them, and I was reminded of just how much I love them. I also sent down some samples to the guys that are joining me a bit later on, so that they could sit and sip along with me during this feed, and then we could compare notes when we hook up a wee bit later. But they've been sitting here breathing for a little while with their hats. And the first thing that strikes me about this one, this is the first one. This is Green Spot. This is no age statement. It's suggested that it's about 7 or 8 years, 40% ABV, and this one is chill filtered. This is their entry level product. There's a 12-year-old yellow spot, and they have occasionally wine finishes and special editions and things like that. But the thing that strikes me about this is that, and I'm always reminded about this, it is a wee bit, I don't want to be cruel to it, it's a wee bit two-dimensional. It's not that complex a whiskey. It's got butteriness and creaminess. It's got a lot of kind of almost, sometimes you could believe that it's kind of corn sweetness in there. But the thing that I find utterly compelling about this and the other 2 whiskies and any pot still whiskey that I've tried, Irish pot still whiskey, is the texture. It is the most oily, mouth-coating texture of any whiskey as a genre that I've happened across, and I absolutely love it. My friend theWhiskyRev is not so keen. He doesn't like the texture of Irish pot still whiskey so much, but I just think he's not trying hard enough. So we're gonna sip this one. We're also going to sip one of the wine finishes. This is the Chateau Léoville Barton, which has been out since 2015. They've just brought out another one, actually. I can't remember. It says Infidel Grape, but I can't remember the name of it. But I think it's only for Ireland and the US. I don't think it's for UK and Europe, the rest of Europe yet. I'm not sure. I didn't check on that. But I know this whiskey very well, and I absolutely love it. And finally, this is a bit more meaty. This is a bit more dark and complex. This is Powers John's Lane. So I don't know how many of you guys actually know what pot still whiskey is. Hoyt Hemphill, good to see you. Hoyt is saying the Green Spot Bordeaux finish is great. Well, I think this is Bordeaux, right? Chateau Léoville Barton, I think, is a Bordeaux. Is this the one you mean, Hoyt? I think it is a Bordeaux cask. And you're absolutely right. If it's that one you're talking about, it is great. It's a wonderful whiskey. And that one is 46% ABV and non-chill filtered. So it brings a lot more than the standard Green Spot. And to try them in contrast side by side is really quite interesting. Access Whiskey, welcome in. He's saying, what have I missed? Nothing yet, just me monologuing, my friend. But it's nice to see you and it's wonderful to welcome you. Travis is saying, the Rev's palate must be broken if he doesn't like single pot still. Like I said, he's just not trying hard enough. He has his quirks, the Rev. Gary's Whiskey Reviews is saying the Leo of Alberton is amazing, as is the Powers. Yes, I agree, Gary. They're both very, very good. Whiskey Throttle saying Hoya Hempel is saying yes. So yes, it is that one he's talking about. Good. And Jason Whiskey Wise is asking me, was that the one you got us at the pot still? Yes, when Jason was up in Glasgow, I do believe when we were out that night, Jason, that perhaps probably was the one I bought you. And I think you enjoyed it that night. I mean, it's not bad. It's really not bad on the nose at all. It's nice. It's quite floral. But I think it's a flatter experience on the nose than... No, maybe not. This has been sitting in the glass for a little while. It's really nice. And there's that texture again. Just a fantastic mouth coating, oily texture. I mean, I'd love to kind of try and show you this on camera, but it never works anytime I put anything up to that camera. But it's a fairly oily dram in the glass as well. So yeah, this whole thing I'm talking about is that if we talk about Irish whiskies and this type of Irish whiskey that I like, it's certainly going to be single pot style Irish whiskey. And for me, there's a figure, there's a guy who keeps cropping up in the story of single pot style Irish whiskey. And it's that guy I wanted to talk about. He is an Irishman, and the guy is called Aeneas Coffey. And he pops up a couple of times in the history. He just kind of crosses paths with it. He doesn't have a direct hand on it, but the things that Aeneas Coffey has done in the history of Irish whiskey, in the history of whiskey indeed, has affected this spirit quite considerably. He was a customs and excise guy. He was born in France to Irish parents, and he came back to Dublin for his education. I think Trinity College, probably. And he ended up working for customs and excise, to basically bring tax and money and revenue in for the exchequer. And he started to get involved in examining illicit distilling practices and the amount of money that the exchequer, that the crown was losing through illicit distilling. And at that time, there was lots of really clumsy things going on that they were putting in place in order to get revenue back. And one of those things was that they decided just to tax malted barley. So before whiskey was even produced, before it was fermented, before it was distilled, before it was, certainly back then it wasn't matured anyway, but before anything happened with it, before it was sold, it was taxed on the grain, on the malted barley. So the Irish come up with a solution to just use unmalted barley, which is awesome. So they started to use a significant proportion of the mash unmalted to dodge the tax. Now, obviously, that made it a much more inefficient fermentation and thus distillation, so they were getting less alcohol litres out of tons of barley. But obviously, they did the maths and worked out that it was better than them handing the money over to the taxman. Now, obviously, that nonsense, with actually the help of Aeneas Coffey and some of his rational thought and progressive thinking, some of his recommendations, in time, that was repealed. And they stopped doing that. But it was already too late. There was, by that time, a genre of Irish whiskey had already been established. And that was this pot still whiskey that was produced from a mash of malted barley and unmalted barley. And this texture, this flavour, this buttery, oily richness was loved and went on to become not just the most popular spirit in Ireland, but the most popular spirit exported in the world anywhere. There was nothing more popular than this spirit during that century, the 19th century. Aeneas Coffey was involved in a lot of the recommendations that saw the Licensing Act of 1823. And that meant that a lot of the distilleries could produce in a rational way, a way that they could make profit and make a good quality product, and the Crown could get revenue from it. That meant that the brakes were taken off. Basically, the Irish whiskey just exploded. It just blew up and did very, very, very well. It was, as I say, the most popular spirit in the world. Now, that went on for quite a while. And then Mr. Coffey, he left Customs and Excise and got involved in distilling himself. And he happened upon an invention in a Dublin distillery, and it was a column still. And this column still was, in concept, a fantastic idea, but in practice, it just wasn't producing the results. It was pretty inefficient. It was a bit clunky. But Aeneas Coffey saw something in this invention, this continuous still, that meant that you could produce whiskey in a more efficient, purer way. And he took that and he made modifications and he developed the idea and came up with what we now know today as, it's a patent still, but we know it as the Coffey still. And once he'd perfected his proposals, he took it back to the Irish distilling landscape, and they, as we're told anecdotally, they just rejected it. They didn't see it as being part of what they made. They didn't see it being of benefit to them. So Aeneas Coffey brought it to England and sold it to gin distillation, and he took it to Scotland and he sold it to the Scotch distillers, especially the big urban distillers in the lowlands. I've just had a donation in from, and I apologise for this kind of monologue, but I think it's a cool story, and given that it's the Irish St. Patrick's Day this weekend, I think it's probably the best thing to tell it. But Rob, my friend at Whiskey Day 6, has made a super chat donation. Thank you very much. And he's saying, happy early St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Thanks for the education, right? Very informative. Well, I'm only halfway through it, Rob. I hope you can endure. So he brought it to Scotland. The Scotch whisky industry took this invention on board, replaced their massive pot stills that they were using at the time in a batch production with these Coffey stills, and the rest is history. Because what these Coffey stills produced was a very high ABV, very pure, very clean, very high quality, and the most important thing, a very consistent spirit. And what they could do is that they could suddenly replace, because the lowland whiskies back then were terrible quality, and they were driven by the need to make money. And the quality was apparently terrible. But the Highland whiskies made by illicit distillers who could do what they want and make whiskey the way they wanted, that was in demand. That was the high quality spirit. So in time, Highland whiskies had a very, very good reputation for flavour, albeit they were inconsistent, but the flavour was very, very good and they were highly prized. They could take these Highland malt whiskies, put them on this base of very clean, good quality, consistent grain whiskey base, and they could make a blend. And as soon as they could make that blend consistent, they could brand it, and then they could sell it to the world. And back in the late 19th century, that's exactly what Andrew Usher did. And he took his blend to the world, and so many followed him. And look at where we are today. Even now, 90% of the whiskey sold, 90% of the whiskey made by volume is still a blended whiskey. And that's because of how consistent it can be by blending all of these different components to get the same, more or less, output every time. Not by value, it's a lot more than that by value, because single malts are so much more expensive. So I don't know, they're 25 to 40%, depending on where you get the information from, of the market share. But in terms of litres of alcohol, it's still very much a blends market. So Mr. Coffey was quite a cool cat. And in those two events that happened, the Licensing Act and his consultation, I guess, on the run-up to the Licensing Act in 1823, and then his invention of the Coffey still a bit later, completely changed the landscape of whiskey. Now, in time, Irish single pot still declined because the Scots just took over. They could make consistent, good quality spirit very, very cheaply, and the Irish couldn't compete. And then they had other struggles like the First World War, and then they hit prohibition in the States, and the Irish didn't participate in any kind of supply network into the States, where the Scots seemed to be a bit freer, and they were quite happy to supply overstocks to Canada and any other country that they could ship stocks into the States from. And the Scots then had a situation where, even though it was illegal, their brands were already established throughout that position of prohibition, throughout that time of prohibition. So they were able to capitalize on that as well. So what happened with the single pot still Irish whiskey is it just declined and declined and declined. And it got so bad that in round about the late 70s, early 80s, the only single pot still Irish whiskey remaining was this green spot from Mitchell's in Dublin. And it almost died out. I mean, the production went down to less than 10,000 bottles a year. It was that small, and this was the last example of its type. And then, as we know the story, from 1990 till now, the biggest growing spirit category every single year is Irish whiskey. It is just, it knows no limits. It's getting better and better, more varied. There's more distilleries opening. If you're having a hard time keeping up with the whiskies, distillery proposals happening in Scotland, you should see Ireland. Ireland is just going crazy and growing very, very well after so many years of rationalization and consolidation and closures. And I think it's a great thing, because I happen to think that this style of whiskey, this genre of whiskey, which is absolutely unique. I know of no other country that makes whiskey from a mash of malted and unmalted grain and pot stills like this. And it's absolutely delicious. I love it. And I hope you guys that are sipping it understand where I'm coming from. It's really lovely. Okay, sorry about that monologue, but I did want to spend a wee bit of time on that. I think it could have been a good feature video subject. I might do it yet. A bit more research and actually do a proper video on it, but it was St. Patrick's Day, so it seemed like the right thing to share it with you. I've probably lost most of the chat through that monologue. You can feed back to me if it's not the kind of thing you want to hear, if you prefer the interaction, because I would understand that completely. Let's have a quick look at the Whiskey Rev, who's probably been sending me messages to say, gonna shut up now. Okay, DDIY Network, good to see you in again, my friend. Aqvavitae, I made it. Good for you. Welcome in. Now I sit back and enjoy the stream. It's fantastic to see you. Good to see you again. And I'm picking you up here and there on YouTube and reading your comments and things. I've been noticing your little logo around. Causeway Coast Whiskey, fantastic. Welcome to this. This is the first time you've been in. I know that we've hooked up on social media. It's good to see you here. I recommend you buy A Glass Apart, an amazing book about Irish pot still by Fiona O'Connor. That would probably correct a lot of the stuff I've just come out with, right? It would probably set me right on the story I've not heard of that book, but I guarantee you it'd probably be an interesting read for me, right? Gregor McQuee is saying Aqvavitae Irish whiskey tax dodging and the Scots are considered tight. Yeah. Yeah. That's right, Gregor. Pressman, good to see you in again, Pressman. Just had my first Scotch, Glenmorangie Original 10-year. Very good. A nice little entry. Well, that was the one on the last live stream that I tried alongside its older compatriot. I hope, Pressman, even though if it's your first Scotch, is that your first Scotch ever or just first Scotch tonight? Probably just tonight, right? Are you getting a blast of fresh pineapple from it? Let me know. I get it every time I put my face in a modern Glenmorangie 10. Ed is commenting. He's saying it's a great entry point both for Scotch and for the rest of the Glenmorangie line. Yes, absolutely. It's a very good. I like using Glenmorangie 10 as a bit of a palate cleanser at the start of a flight as well. I'm going to leave a little bit of this green spot to compare it to its peer. Mikey Hay is saying, thanks for asking my question, right? You're very welcome, Mikey. I probably got distracted and didn't answer it all. The only thing I didn't pick up on, Mikey, was the gift thing. I don't get gifts from people. I don't get gifts from distilleries or reps or anything like that. I do not. I've never even been offered. I don't know how I would react if I if I did get offered. I would like to say that I would probably say no if they needed me or required me to do any publicity with it. I don't think I would feel comfortable about that. The gifts that I was talking about was mostly gifts from friends and family, people who know I love whiskey, and they use it as an easy thing, an easy gift to buy me. So they usually ask my wife what kind of whiskey I'm after. She interrogates me, and she usually relays it, and I get gifted some nice whiskies from friends, which is awesome. Gregor is saying, had Signet for the first time. Wow, super rich. My God, it was decent for no age statement. Yeah, it's a pretty expensive no age statement, though. It's about £120, £150 now, isn't it, some places? How does the Duthac compare? I don't know. I've not tried that. That was, I think that was an airport exclusive, the Duthac, wasn't it? I'm due to be passing through duty-free soon. Okay. I've not tried it. But Glenmorangie, on almost every airport I've ever seen, all the bottles are open and you can ask to try. Gohabs is saying, someone is going to inherit a nice collection when you pass. Yes, but I guarantee you it's not going to be worth anything, because every bottle, if I get my way, will be opened. So there'll be no provenance. It'll have to be drunk. Neil Bloor, Roy, just thanks for talking about me passing. Gohabs. Roy, just ordered the Clynleash 14 after your recommendation. Neil, tell me if you're enjoying that. That's a new name in, Neil. It's nice to welcome you. Tell me how you're getting on with that Clynleash, because I have to be honest, it's up there in my top 2-3 distilleries. Clynleash, I just absolutely love the stuff. But I'm working out, the more people I talk to, that it's not a beginner's whiskey. Some people wonder what it's all about. It's a texture whiskey, that barley sugar thing that it's got going on, that kind of waxy mouth coating, similar to this. That texture, I absolutely love it. I love Clynleash. Simple diversion. Are you recycling anytime soon? Probably the next time would probably be late April, I think. I've got a few bottles. I don't think I've got 15. I've got 15 bottles out there, but they're either doubles or ones that I'm not really interested in sharing with you. They're a bit dull. So I'll wait till there's 15 semi-interesting bottles, probably April time. New series, Whiskey Lectures with Roy. I know. It was a bit of a lecture, wasn't it? Hoyt is saying, I enjoyed the history bits about Irish whiskey. Good. Thank you, Hoyt. I hope everyone did. I've probably switched everyone off. 89 watching. So some people have, thank you, stalwarts. Aqvavitae, planning on purchasing either the Balvenie 21 Portwood or Macallan 18. Channel to channel, which would you prefer? I have had the Macallan 18, but not the Portwood yet. All other things being equal, I'd have the Macallan 18. Lots of positive comments about information on Irish whiskey. Thank you, Rev. Thank you very, very much. I wondered, let's see if I've missed any in here. Alan K is saying, only Irish I have is Connemara. Yeah, I think that's peated, isn't it? So having a dram now. I think I've tried that, but I don't remember much about it, Alan. Gregor is saying letdowns in the recycler. Okay, gives us stuff to avoid. It's not that it's letdown. It's just that it's kind of boring stuff. It's like I mean, I've got like Caddenhead's a shop in Edinburgh, and they do living casks, and you can go in, and I've got an empty one of those. What is there to say about that? Because if somebody else goes in and buys from that exact same cask, it's not going to be anything like the one I have. It's irrelevant to. I suppose I could drop it in the recycling and just share the concept of what it actually is, but kind of giving it a kind of an opinion or a rating seems a bit redundant. And kind of supermarket, UK supermarket fodder, and yeah, I have to. Any content that I produce on YouTube, any content that I make, has to be something that I can be impassioned about. It has to be something that I can get behind the camera and talk about and get excited about. And a lot of the bottles that are there just need to go in the bin, and they don't really excite me. Yes. So there, DDI Network. I got your John Paul Vanderhoven. Good to see you in again, John Paul. It's good to have you here. I regularly gift a set of blind drams to friends. Clinleash 14 is almost every time picked as a favourite. Wow. Well, that is good feedback. There's a reason that Compass Box build almost every blend that they've ever put together on the foundation of Clinleash, right? Daniel Whiskey Throttle saying, "Phew, made it through the traffic. Now if my computer will start so I can get my whiskey chat on." Good for you, Daniel. Swami, Malton, Montreal. Good to see you in, Swami. I loved Mac 18 7 years ago. Not so much today. Glendronach is better, in my opinion. Yeah, but what would you pick against between the Mac 18 and above any 21? Good. Okay, where are we at? We're at 25 past. Good timing. I think what I'd like to do is enjoy the rest of the drams that I've poured with my friends, the guests that I have in tonight. So this channel I've been watching for quite a little while, and I kind of enjoyed the vibe. I enjoyed the fun from it, and I followed them on their other social media channels and things like that. And then more recently, I realized that some of the videos that they've put together are really quite cool, really very cool. And while they do do a kind of pop the bottle, do a review thing, they've got a different spin on it. And I think at one point I'll need to ask them about that. They did 60-second reviews, which always makes me feel a wee bit like they were trying to kind of fulfill an Instagram thing as well as a YouTube thing. But then they started to do a couple of feature videos, and they did features on toasting casks and the influence a sherry cask has on whiskey and things like that. Super interesting stuff. And recently they've done a few reviews that I just felt compelled to reach out to them and say, what are you guys about? What are you doing? I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And it's not just because they're putting together kind of good whiskey content. It's because they're doing it in a very, very educational way. But it's not like sitting through the monologue that you've just sat through with me. It's not like that. It's fun. You don't feel like you're watching a long video, and they're not long videos, they're just a few minutes. But when it gets to the end, you feel like I wasn't ready for that to end. I was enjoying that. They're mixing it up. They're putting in clips in there, and the content in it has clearly been researched, and it's good fun and it's good information. Santa Cruz, and my friend, has just made a donation. Keep up the great work, Roy. Thank you very much, Chris. I'm not sure how great it is tonight. I'm hoping it's going to get better when my guests come in, but you're a wonderful gentleman again. Thank you so much for the generous gesture. Thank you, Chris. You're a superstar. So I got to watch these guys, and it's now at the stage that when they're bringing out a video, I'm quite excited because I'm looking forward to see what their video is about. A lot of people know them. They've got a decent presence on YouTube now, but they're fairly new to it. So I'd like to just get the chat put to the side for a second, click over to the window, and welcome in two lovely guys known as Ed, who's behind the camera, and Evan, who's the guy that you see on camera. So if you unmute yourselves, guys, and come in, I'd like to welcome you.
Hi, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
I'm hoping, and I can see you as well. Fantastic. Awesome. How are you, boys?
We're doing well. We've basically been sat here for the last 20 minutes, just worried that the IT wasn't going to work. So now it feels like a really nice relief to be actually being able to see you.
It looks like it's working, and if I check the monitor over to my right, I can see that you guys are appearing live as well, so it's definitely working. We met up 15 minutes before go live, didn't we, just to make sure that this link up was going to work, and that was very, very fortunate we did that, because it didn't work. So how are you doing? What are you sitting sipping just now?
So we've gone through. So we're doing well. We're going through what the whiskeys that you've generously provided for us, and it's really interesting for us because we're fairly new into the world of whiskey, and so we sort of started out our whiskey journey mostly in Scotland, which I think is probably where most people tend to start out.
Yep.
And have only recently branched into Ireland. So it's really interesting for us to be going through such unique flavors coming from an Irish distillery, which is genuinely quite different from what we're probably used to sipping with Scotch whiskey.
What do you find the most different? I mean, did you get what I was talking about when I talked about the texture there, the oiliness of the whiskey?
Yeah. So to me, the mouthfeel on, particularly on the Powers, is really interesting. It's really mouth coating, full body. It's quite unique, isn't it?
Well, the Powers, I've not even got as far as the Powers yet, because I had one of these last night, and I tried this a couple of times. I just bought this bottle. I tried this a couple of times as a bar pour, and it wasn't that memorable other than the fact that I remember that I quite liked it. But when I poured it last night and tried it in contrast with these, I was struck by how almost dark it was in comparison to the other two. There's so much more spice on it, so much more kind of, you could almost fool yourselves into thinking that there's a bit of smoke there, which I often do. I'm not sure that there is, but I don't know if you get that at all.
So I don't get much smoke on it, but I really get that mouth coating feel.
Absolutely.
And what I think is interesting too is if you compare it to, I don't know if you have the Powers Gold regularly, but as a fan of cheap whiskey, I like it's interesting to taste things that go into those mainstream blends. So it's sort of obviously being from the U.S. And I know a lot of people who will be watching are from the U.S. Doing my SATs. So it's sort of say that this Powers 12 is to Powers Gold as Mortlock is to Johnny Walker.
Oh, nice.
which is so this will mean nothing to you guys, but the American.
It sounded like a real.
Yeah. The Americans out there be like, that guy studied for his SATs.
No, I get the analogy. I definitely do. And I think that when you think about Irish whiskey, you tend to think about really light spirits, don't you? You tend to think about, Jameson and things like that. Triple distilled. I mean, these pot still whiskies that you're sipping now, they are triple distilled. So it just goes to show that it doesn't need to be that kind of light, ethereal, floral experience that you get from a lot of Irish whiskies that I guess are intended for mixing. This is a really deep experience. It's a really good sipper.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really surprised me because I think typically the Irish whiskeys that we've had have been those triple distilled where you're getting those light floral flavors coming through, and it's nice to taste something that's so surprisingly different.
Absolutely. Now, indulge me here. And a lot of people are going to think I'm absolutely crazy, so I don't know how this is going to work. And don't agree with me just for the sake of agree. Agree with me only if this is actually happening. But you've just sipped that Powers, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
Have you both got a little bit of the original 40% green spot, the first one?
Yes.
Yes.
So after a sip of the Powers, go back to the green spot and just hear me out on this. This is something that I've never even spoke to anybody face to face about this, and I'm about to say it live on air. But I think we talk about flavors, we talk about texture in whiskey. Certainly, we've talked about that tonight. But I think when you go back to that original green spot, it tastes cool in temperature. It tastes cooler.
It's strange, isn't it? Because they're both sat here at exactly the same temperature, and yet you're right. In comparison, the Powers is quite warm, perhaps because it is such a heavy mouthfeel. But the green spot is light, cool, a little bit more refreshing on the palate. And actually, now you point that out, it's a weird mind trick that this does feel a couple of degrees cooler than the other.
Absolutely. When I was sitting there sipping them last night, every time I went back to the original green spot, I was like, I must be leaving this. There must be a draft or something. This tastes colder. It tastes absolutely colder. It's not the first time that I've experienced that, but I'm often a bit odd with these things, but I'm glad that you can see that.
Yeah, I think maybe you guys pick it up slightly more than I do. I think that it tastes a lot lighter. I wouldn't necessarily think that I get a temperature difference in it.
That's his polite way of saying I think you're both crazy.
I would never ever bother to be polite.
sit with it a bit.
I'll sit with
I think
it.
you will get what we're
I'll
talking
go back
about.
to the experiment. I haven't given up hope.
Good. Enough about the whiskey. Let's talk about you guys. You heard me on the intro, obviously, as I introduced you, and we've spoken. I never mentioned actually that I had the pleasure of hooking up, and because of all the disruption with the weather a couple of weeks ago, and I was stranded, I couldn't get home. I ended up in London, and I took the opportunity to hook up with Ed, and the two of us went out and had a fantastic night, Ed. We put the world to rights in a couple of Soho's whiskey spots.
Absolutely.
But I enjoyed talking a bit about where you guys have come from and things. So I know where you've come from, but the guys out there don't know where you've come from. So, I mean, I know that you've got a very strong Instagram presence. I know you're very active on Twitter. But a year ago, your whiskey passion took you to YouTube. What made you do that?
It's actually it was sort of an evolution of Instagram. We didn't really go from Instagram and think, oh, okay, now we'll start YouTube. It was mostly we were looking for something fun and interesting to do. We both really enjoy whiskey, and we wanted to have an outlet to do something and reach more people. And one of the things that we always enjoyed, I think Ed might have told you the story before. So we used to live in York. Ed and I used to work together, and we went on a Sunday night. It was brilliant from a marketing perspective. Fantastic idea. There was this great hotel with an amazing whiskey collection, and on a Sunday night they did a whiskey tasting, and obviously no one would ever be there except for the losers who would go to drink on a whiskey tasting on a Sunday night, which was basically us and lots of other people that also really liked whiskey. And we made
whiskey geeks.
Whiskey geeks. I mean, like proper whiskey geeks. And we went in there and we met all kinds of people that we otherwise would never have met and never have made friends with. People, all different kinds of, walks of life, different ages, and see people that just you wouldn't ever meet. And we just made so many great connections and so many good friends through whiskey. And I guess we sort of thought that it would be a good opportunity for us to try to go and make friends on the internet. Which we say it like that. Maybe I need to rethink some of the life decisions we've made.
But that's not how you guys met. You guys obviously knew each other through your workplace beforehand, right?
Right. Yeah. Ed actually gave me my first job.
I did, yes. I interviewed Evan about 9 years ago, and for better or worse, I said to line management, good guy, great talent, great ambition, we should give him a job.
And he's been paying for it ever since.
We all need
they sacked him 6 months in. It was really uncomfortable for both of us.
So tell me then, you've kind of gone out there and you've started to take this newfound curiosity and interest in whiskey, and you've decided to take it onto the internet, and maybe you've started this kind of Top Whiskies idea. But at some point that progressed, and this always intrigues me when I have another channel on, because for me, I remember sitting in my kitchen, and the guy who's my moderator tonight, the Whiskey Rev, I remember him and I sitting together at a breakfast bar, and my wife was there as well, and the two of them saying, Roy, you should consider kind of doing a YouTube thing or something like that, a creative outlet. I think you would enjoy that. And I remember me saying, absolutely not. That's absolutely not what I want to do. That just sounds terrifying to me. So obviously something happened where you guys thought, oh, well, let's make video.
Yeah, I think it was mostly Ed's idea, and he pitched it to me saying, it'd be great. We could do some videos. We can do something creative. It'll be really fun. And I said, yeah, I think that could really work. I think that does sound really good. And Ed said, yeah, and I can record it.
That's effective delegation, that is. I gave him an opportunity to shine and just set him up for success.
Yeah, and I actually am really appreciative to you, Roy, for being able to bring Ed onto this, which he was not excited about.
One of the few times you'll get me on camera, in front of camera, I should say.
Well, I've spotted a couple of your videos where you do make a cameo appearance. But I guess you don't make a cameo a cameo appearance as you. You're just like a guy in the scene, right?
That baseless voice drifting from behind the camera.
I got his hands in the last cut.
True.
I don't know if you
I
saw.
saw that right at the end. That's right at the end that you mentioned that you managed to get him to mix up the glasses blind. I saw that.
That took some convincing.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed some of the content that you guys have been putting out recently. Really, really very good. And one of the things that I think strikes more than anything is that clearly you're passionate. Clearly you research these things. You want to get across the salient points. But the production value is pretty damn good as well. You must have background in producing that kind of content.
It's amazing what you could do on iMovie.
Yeah.
We kind of decided we wanted to start doing this, and like anyone, our first port of call was just going onto YouTube. And if you look through sort of I think our shared YouTube history, it's how to edit movies in iMovie, how to incorporate clips into iMovie, how to use good sound in iMovie. My search history on YouTube is surprisingly dull. So basically, we actually learned how to do everything from YouTube.
So how do you split the workload then? You've gone out and you've done the research. You know, I get the impression that Ed's the technical guy and you're the presenter. Is that the split on workload, or how are you putting these things together? Are you both editing?
Well, yeah. Well, so I think we work together on a lot of things. So we write the scripts, we shoot it, we edit it. I think we work really well as a team. Ed does a lot of the clever social media bits.
Right.
Everything so on Instagram and all that is Ed's been able to really grow our channel well. And then I do a bit more of the editing and a bit more of the technical bits, trying to put together the content.
But I think we both get an awful lot out of everything we do. We almost get three key things. Number one, as Evan said, it's been a really great journey just learning about whiskey and uncovering new things as we go. Number two, we kind of joke about it, but there is a serious point. It is a great way to meet like-minded people. It is a wonderful social experience. And I think you mentioned earlier that you've met some brilliant people through social media that you perhaps managed to hook up with at festivals. That for both of us, I think, is a great community aspect. And then the third element is I think we are both a little bit creative. Our day job is perhaps quite structured. So for us, this is a creative outlet. Evan did creative writing at university, as you can probably guess from some of the styles and approaches he takes in his videos. I did design at university, so I love some of the more creative aspects as well. And our channels give us a creative outlet that we perhaps don't get in the day jobs.
Yeah. Also, when someone at work asks you what your hobby is, if you say drinking whiskey, that doesn't sound very good. But if you say, oh, my hobby is I've got a whiskey blog, all of a sudden you have a lot more credibility.
Yeah.
So they don't all of a sudden call up HR and say, so we have an alcoholic.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if how comfortable you are about sharing this, Evan, but you do have some, experience being that side of the camera, right? Do you want to share that?
Absolute child prodigy.
That is definitely not true. That is not at all true. Thanks for the So my professional acting debut was at age 8. I starred in A Christmas Carol as a young Tiny Tim, which is very exciting. That was when I got my first professional paycheck, and then I was briefly. So I use the term exceptionally loosely. I was a presenter on the Disney Channel. Again, aged 11, and my primary role was pretending like I was watching Sunday morning cartoons and talking about them as if I had just watched these cartoons. There were about 4 or 5 of us. So again, anyone on the out watching in the U.S., if you ever watched One Saturday Morning in the U.S., which was a cartoon series, we used to watch, and so the way it was set up is we have no idea what these cartoons were. They just sort of tell us what to talk about, and then we all kind of just pretended like we just watched these great cartoons.
Well, I mean, it seems to me like a perfect storm, because you've got somebody that's quite comfortable to go that side of the camera and kind of present these concepts and come across, and I have to be honest, in quite a charismatic and engaging way. You very quickly forget that you're listening to someone, and you just absorb the message that you're saying. That's one of the really cool things that you guys are doing. And obviously you've got Ed, the other side of the camera, to take care of all the technical stresses that what we do is solo guys doing it on their own. We have to constantly go around behind the camera, constantly go around and check the frames right, the white balances and all this nonsense. It's really lovely to have somebody there. But when both of you are connected so robustly by whiskey, it is the perfect storm, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's great, and I don't think either of us would be trying to do it by ourselves. It's so difficult to try to produce videos that, like as you said before, I think our videos are probably a bit different than what other people put out. We don't just sit and review whiskey in kind of the traditional way. We try to have a bit more. I don't want to say
absolutely you do, and that's what I said, that you've put a different spin on the genre, definitely. And I think that I've said to a few people, I'm monitoring about 80 or 90 English-speaking whiskey channels on YouTube right now. It's just, there's an explosion of channels, or explosion of whiskey content, which I think reflects the amount of people that's getting into whiskey, to be honest. And hopefully the community will follow, the community will come in as well. But what you guys have managed to do, it's a difficult thing. How do I share whiskey? How do I do impassioned whiskey topics and subjects in a way that's not currently being done? And I think you've worked out a way to do it. And I've got a challenge for you.
Ooh,
I'm going to set a challenge. One of your things is to cut up the footage, which I think works very, very well, with little clips from TV shows, from movies and things, often to kind of send home a point, but sometimes just as a bit of a joke, right?
Correct.
So the challenge is, I would like you to put in one of those clips one day and have the young 8-year-old or 10-year-old or 12-year-old or Evan.
I'm very happy to accept that challenge, Roy, on behalf of Top Whiskies. Consider it done.
But the challenge on our side is the people watching the content. We've got to spot when that clip actually comes in and see that young.
Love it. That's a great challenge, Roy.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying the content that you're putting out as well. But be honest with me, because some of the concepts that you're sharing are pretty deep concepts. When you talked about the influence of a sherry cask, when you talked about, the journey of a cask, and you even put in a lot of fantastic beef footage there from, I think it was Loch Lomond Cooperage and things, where you're seeing people showing you the different staves and toasting the barrels and things. A lot. You must have to put in a lot of research and a lot of work up front before you even sit in front of iMovie, right?
Yeah, so it probably takes us. So we plan everything out because we have so many clips, and we cut to so many things to try to reinforce our ideas and make it a bit more enjoyable for people to watch. You do kind of have to set everything out in advance. So we script it all out. We do all the research. We find the clips we want to say, and essentially we do a bit of a script. So the more recent reviews that you've seen, so the ones that are probably 5 or 6 minutes opposed to the 60-second ones. Yeah. Probably the first 4 minutes of that is pretty much totally scripted, and trying to set up the lines in the right way that we can cut to the clip that we want to use and all of that. And then the second bit is when we actually do the review. That is then editing out. So I'm on camera and Ed's obviously behind it. We'll both pour ourselves a whiskey. We'll take a sip. We'll nose it. We'll kind of agree between us, what do we think the nose on this is, and then Ed will usually say it much more eloquently than I will, and then we'll turn to the camera and try to record basically the conversation we had just had.
Yeah. Superb, absolutely superb. And I noticed like a lot of the kind of candid cuts and things that are put in there. And if you wait to the end of the video till past the credits and things, there's sometimes a little Easter egg that you put at the end of the videos, which is quite cool as well.
The only way I can get Ed into a video.
And I'm learning this, so I'm becoming ever more cagey about what I say on camera for fear that it will be included as the Easter egg at the end of the video. I have cottoned on to what he's doing.
There's a cracker. We've got a couple of weeks. We'll have the Jameson review come out, and Ed says something absolutely ridiculous. He doesn't even know it yet, but I saw it when I was editing something else. So just wait a couple of weeks. There's a really great cracker that'll come out.
I'm slightly nervous now. I'm trying to work out exactly what it was.
Yeah, you should be nervous. You sound like an idiot.
Well, I actually quite enjoy that. Again, it's something that's a little bit different for you guys, is that you get that interaction, so that there's the point where you'll sometimes break from the scripted section, and then you'll interact with Ed behind the camera, and that'll sometimes be included, and it gives it an extra element of depth. There's clearly a teamwork going on. There's clearly a partnership happening there.
Yeah, we've actually done a video. Well, it was completely accidental. With where we reviewed Aberlour, and so I had it in the sort of on camera. It was one of the 60-second ones, and I wasn't quite convinced by it. So I took a sip and I did my review, and Ed was like, "You sure?" And he kind of put the camera down, and you can hear his footsteps as he walks away to go get his glass, and he comes back. And we then have this debate about whether or not how we should rate it, and that was completely unscripted. And literally, the camera is sort of pointed down. You can't even see me because it's basically just me and Ed talking. And we had sort of forgotten that the camera was actually on. I think that's of all the work it takes to create a video, to edit a video, to do all of the scripting ahead of time. I think that one's my favorite video, and it was completely candid.
It is that great little reality check, and that little story lies at the heart of what TopWhiskies is for both of us. It is at its heart just two guys having fun, loving whiskey, learning about whiskey, having a little bit of a gentle challenge, a gentle disagreement. And that enjoyment plus the creative element plus the community element is why we decided that we wanted to do TopWhiskies and to make something of what we are so passionate about, just as yourself, Roy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that comes across. And I know the session that the conversation that you're talking about, Evan, I remember seeing it, and I remember it being about a discussion. I think it was Aberlour 12, right?
It was, yeah.
And I remember thinking, no, this is a redundant discussion. They need to go and pour the other whiskey and compare them back to back, because so often you get that, don't you? You're trying to pitch a whiskey, and often you try and do it in isolation, and it's often kind of got so much more to do with your palate, I think, than it has to do with the whiskey. And sometimes you can go back to that whiskey again and absolutely love it and realize, wow, I wonder what happened the last time I had this dram. And I don't know, obviously, that's obviously very unlikely that was not what was happening. But I did have that feeling at the time that I wonder, where are they right now? Do they have the other whiskey on hand? Because that would be awesome if they just go and grab the other whiskey right now and try them back to back. Which brings me on to the next thing. The set that you film in is awesome. Where is that?
So I work for a fintech company, a company that specializes in online insurance and financial technology. So we decided that as a fintech player, we can't have a big corporate office that's very traditional. We need something that's a bit more boutique, a little bit more unique, something that's edgy, creative, and that gets the Silicon Valley types over and working for us. So we are currently sat in my place of work. I emailed the chief secretary to double check that we would be allowed to come in and drink whiskey tonight, and got sign off from the security guards that we would be here. So welcome to my office.
Superb, absolutely superb.
Yeah.
I must admit the backdrop is quite cool with the exposed brickwork and things like that. I had an idea that that's where you might be.
It does work really well because it has that cool, charismatic look. I kind of feel that it's a bit like a posh bar, but for obvious reasons, it's quiet and peaceful. We don't have people walking past us. We can sit here and record. So we're fortunate and lucky and grateful to my company that we can use this as a little bit of a makeshift studio.
So let me ask then, I mean, there was some feedback in the chat earlier on. I caught it through the corner of my eye as I was listening to you there. And WelshToro pointed out that he's enjoying your longer videos earlier on. And that's a couple of things have come back that the people, I think in the YouTube environment, people are expecting a kind of deeper experience. You know, they're okay to sit down and watch a 4, 5, 6 minute video or longer. And in the case of my videos, even longer than that. But, you know, what is your plans going forward? Are you going to continue the 60-second theme? Have you kind of moved away from that? Now, what is the plans for Top Whiskies in the future? And of course, I'm mostly interested in talking about the YouTube scenario here.
Yeah, so mostly with YouTube. So we started out doing the 60-second reviews. I mean, being totally honest, I wasn't super comfortable on camera to start with. And so if you look at the really early 60-second reviews, I wasn't actually saying anything, and I was using the film clips in order to sort of do a review of the whiskeys. So things like Lefroy, and then cutting to Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm.
That's right.
And like, so those are the really early ones where I thought, well, I could use that film clip, and that film clip is then the entire review, and then I don't need to actually say anything. And that was kind of the original the original idea, and then so we pushed it out a bit further and thought, okay. Within 60 seconds, I'll use a film clip and then I'll kind of explain what the film clip's trying to say. Also because I ran out of film clips that were as clear as Apocalypse Now. So I thought it actually needs a bit of explanation. So we started doing that. And then we thought, well, we actually do want to engage with people a bit more and make longer videos. So our plan now is on YouTube to keep up with the longer format videos for the reviews and try to put out more educational videos as you talked about before, because that's what we're really passionate about, because we've learned so much about whiskey over the last 5 or 6 years. We're quite keen to be able to share that with people and try to talk to people who are maybe I mean I know most of your viewers are proper whiskey geeks who know everything. We're trying to maybe get people who are maybe not quite as well informed as people that tend to watch your channel, the new whiskey people.
Well, I'll make a confession to you there, and there's a few people asking me to put the link to your channel in the, and it's immediately after this live stream. I'll go in and I'll write up the description and I'll put the links and everything in there. No problem. You'll get a link straight to their channel. You can find them on YouTube, no problem. But when I started to watch your content, I felt very much like, because of the additions of whiskey that you were reviewing, and because of the way that you were portraying the whiskies, I felt like it definitely was a kind of very good, easy to consume guide for people coming into whiskey. People that have just stepped into the whiskey bubble and they're wondering which direction to go next. I felt it was very good kind of bite-sized content for that. However, what struck me recently, and you're absolutely right, you've called me perfectly, I am a whiskey geek and I am drawn to whiskey geekery. I would like my content to point towards whiskey noobs, but I think that if I have to talk about things that I'm passionate about, it tends to take me to the jaggy end of the spectrum, to the more kind of geeky end, and it's just the way it is. So probably you're right, the group of the audience that I have are kind of more whiskey geeks. But what I've discovered about your content recently, you're sliding towards the jaggy end now. I smell it.
Well, we're trying to at least be entertaining in the jaggy end. So you're trying to make it, even though so we are trying to push ourselves, and as we learn more about whiskey, I'm sure when you get to the quiz, you realize how poorly we score. As we're trying to learn more and share more with people, that's the stuff that is keeping us interested, the things that we really enjoy doing. But we're still trying to keep it quite accessible. So even though we might be talking about more advanced concepts in whiskey, we're still trying to make it something that the whiskey curious could watch and still really enjoy.
Yeah.
Very well said.
That is very well said. And I've noticed recently that there's much more engagement on my part as well. You're coming out with things that's kind of making me go, "Oh, really? Is that right?" And going and checking it out.
It's all thoroughly researched, so I assure you, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that you're going in that direction.
Wikipedia tells us.
And I think as you go in that direction, you're forced to go in and produce content that you're passionate about, that you like, that you feel comfortable with. But as you script it out, probably you realize that you're driven to go and find out more about it. You're forced to learn more as you go. So it's almost like this, it's feeding, the YouTube thing is feeding the whiskey and the whiskey's feeding the YouTube thing, right?
Absolutely. And we've learned loads by doing the videos and and putting together the information that we need to tell compelling stories. Because ultimately, I think that's what our videos are trying to do is tell a story about these whiskeys. And our format is giving a bit of history before we actually review it. And that's what really gets us excited, because whiskey's so it's great what you get in the glass and you get to experience it, but it's a lot more about the history. And even tonight when we're drinking these Irish whiskeys, it's really interesting to think that there are so few Irish distilleries. And why is that? And you think about consolidation, you think about the impact that Prohibition had on whiskey in Ireland and what that meant. And there's so much to understand and appreciate. And that's what gets us really excited and trying to tell those kinds of stories.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. What we're sitting drinking in a glass right now is a product of distillation. It's a product of creating something. Man has made something and they intended a product to be at the end. But there's often the idea with whiskey that what actually comes out, what you actually enjoy at the other end, it's almost like the whiskey's made its own mind up. But what you've just brought up there as well is the part that history and events and politics and geographical conflicts and things, all of that had a say in all of this. And what we're sitting here, every time you drink a whiskey, it doesn't matter what age the whiskey is, every time you sip a whiskey, the history is literally jumping out the glass at you, I think.
And I think it's exactly as you both just very eloquently described, the story that sits around this man-made product that is designed to be drunk, that is so engrossing. And I think that that's something that we both recognize, that you recognize, right? And that probably everyone in the audience around this virtual table would agree with. The fact that perhaps more so than many other things in life, it becomes exciting, interesting. It's a journey that entices you to engage with it and to learn more about the subject. And I think it's fascinating that, as Evan describes it, always starts simple and easy. It's a dram with a friend behind the bar on a Friday night. And over the months and years, for many of us around the virtual table, it becomes far more than that. And it becomes something that ultimately we become very passionate about.
Absolutely. I often talk about my epiphany whiskies, certain steps along my whiskey journey. There's been epiphany moments that I've had where I've actually stared at the glass and thought, wow, what just happened? And I've often told those stories here and other places. But let me ask you, if you have epiphany whiskies, what are they?
Well, yes, that's a tough one. Well, I guess so. As Ed sort of pointed out already, we are in
BNJ. We've spoke about this little bottle before.
Yeah. So the bottles behind us, all the boxes are intentionally chosen.
I've chosen them very carefully.
Yeah. So we have picked whiskeys that mean something to us, which is why they're here. And this is one that is that's particularly special to us. So B&J originally used to just be so cheap, when it was going into Glenmorangie, and I think this is one that we had in particular that really stood out to us. We started out a couple of years ago with 101 whiskeys to try before you die. Ian Buxton,
like so many, including myself and the Rev.
Yeah. It's not a unique story. So Ian Buxton's 101 whiskeys to try before you die, and we got it, and we thought, let's do this. Let's go through every whiskey in this book and we'll sign it. We'll write our tasting notes in it, and we've got this book that we've worked through, and we came to B&J. And actually, the reason that so Ed bought the first bottle for me for my birthday because it says "Age with Honor" on it.
Yep.
And so Ed got it for me for my birthday, and we thought it was fantastic. And to us, that was a real step change, because
there's another line on that bottle about enjoying judiciously or something, isn't there? There's
well, so I've never seen a bottle that's, I don't know if you can tell if I hold it close. There's an awful lot written on this label. They have a lot of stories to tell. I mean, it is based on Rob Roy, which I think is about 1,000 pages to begin with. So I suppose for that reason, the bottle has a lot of context on it. But yeah, I think this is one of the first whiskeys that we had that we appreciated the flavor of it and weren't thinking about the price, because, I mean, now this is ridiculously expensive because they stopped making it in 2014. But at the time, it was dirt cheap. I was like 20 quid a bottle. It was great.
No expense spared on it.
No expense spared for my birthday.
Well, it was famous for being one of those blends that had a high proportion of malt. The people that enjoyed it, the people that got to really enjoy it, they came to love it. And there was a lot of drinkers up and down the country that were pretty sad when Glenmorangie decided to cut that and focus on malts. And I think it is sad, and I think, unfortunately, they could have done something really cool with it. They could have kept that packaging, that labeling. They could have focused on the quality. They could have premiumized it. They could have made it a profitable thing. And it is a shame that it's gone now, because you're quite right. It's auction fodder now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now buying it now would be ridiculous. I mean, it's so expensive now. But even just the as you said, sort of the label itself, it looks boutique. It looks like something that people just buy, and because back then it was relatively inexpensive. Oh, do we need to walk around? Should I turn the lights back on?
You've got motion controlled lights.
Light behind you. What we really liked about it was being able to sit down and say, we really enjoy the way this whiskey tastes, and even though this is technically an inexpensive whiskey, we think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that was when we first sort of realized that we had started to develop a palate to appreciate whiskey that wasn't just, well, this is 100-pound whiskey, of course it's good. Because, yeah, if you buy 18-year-old Dalmore, it's going to be nice. But I think we realized that we were kind of advancing in our whiskey palate when we had B&J and thought, this is a really nice whiskey. And it is just a nice whiskey, not because it's expensive.
Superb. And I know that the first time that we hooked up online to talk about getting together to do this, that was the whiskey that I pulled out.
Yeah.
And you were quite tickled by it because I'd spotted in one of the videos that you did. That was one of your favorites.
That you were going to pick something special. I was kind of thinking, which of the recent videos has Roy watched? What's he going to choose? So when you pulled out that bottle, I was impressed, because that was not an obvious choice, but it was a very personal choice. And as Evan very well articulates, that really was a gateway whiskey for us that introduced us to a world that was not necessarily the big major brands that you see behind any bar. It was more nuanced and subtle, but was all the more fascinating for it.
Superb. And it's a decent blended whiskey, and as Evan pointed out, it's just a little bit beyond its price point now. I mean, the people that are buying it now are probably buying it to have it for old times' sake. I mean, the whiskey can't live up to the cost of it now, I don't think.
Yeah.
Guys, I would like to ask you if you are willing, and I want to warm up the crowd a little bit. Because they'll be busy while we've been chatting. They'll be pleasing themselves and chatting amongst themselves. I want to warm them up and work out and ask the Rev as well if he has got anybody that's willing to step up for the quiz.
Awesome.
And I'm just going to ask you guys if you would be willing to go up against... Now, I have to be honest, you are likely to get a tough time. Depending on who steps up from the crowd, it is a very knowledgeable crowd.
What I'll do, Roy, is I'll say, yes, we're absolutely willing, but I'll reiterate Evan's introduction by saying we're new to the whiskey journey and we're still learning. So
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. To help you a little bit, listen to me, indulge me here and tell me what you think. This is the first time I've had two people on at the same time. It's usually just me one-on-one with someone else. I'll let you guys team up.
Okay, good.
You go head-to-head. You can confirm.
We're a good team.
But the reason I'm doing that is I think what's going to happen tonight is that you're going to end up going up against a WelshToro, a Hoagie Bear, or my absolute joker is Connor Strang. We
are going to lose.
Yeah,
the ace in my pack.
So basically what you're saying is that you'll let us team up and then we'll still lose and we'll look even worse.
I have to be honest with you. The quiz questions that we put together, there's some easy ones, there's some kind of one or two giveaway ones in there, right? But the idea is that, it's not really about, wow, yeah, I did a fantastic score and things. It's about questions that make you think, oh, well, I'd like to go and look that up afterwards. It's about learning a little bit about whiskey geekery and topics as well, right? And it's about having fun. And the questions can be about production, they can be about YouTube channels, they can be mostly about distilleries and things. But generally, it's just about having fun. And if you score 10 out of 10, that probably I have failed. The WhiskyRev and I, in putting the questions together, have failed. But a few weeks back, one of the guys in the crowd, Connor Strang, did actually score 10 out of 10. But what we've got to remember here is just for fun. There are no prizes here. It's just for a bit of kudos. And I've thought about kind of there's lots of wee things and giveaways and tokens that I could use as prizes. But I kind of just want to keep it about fun. And there's no pride at stake here or anything, because I guarantee you, especially if the WhiskyRev is involved, the questions can be pretty tough.
Well, we're game.
We're thoroughly prepared to do very poorly.
Okay, I'm going to ask the audience then. I'm going to ask our viewers. Guys, are you, we're at that point in the night. It's coming up for 10 past, quarter past. So we're at that point where we're going to tackle the quiz. I have a name, Connor. If he's still in he is. I've just seen him. He's asking, are TopWhiskies London based? Do you want to answer that, Ed?
Yeah, we are. So we're both London based. Evan works in cities around the country during the middle of the week, but he's back over the weekends. I live and work in Shoreditch and the city, but both of us are around over the weekends. So if people want to reach out, drop us a line through YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We'll head to Milroy's, get a dram together. And as we've said a couple of times tonight, it's as much about the community as anything else. So it'd be great to hang out.
Okay. We have a bid in from WelshToro. Now, Connor Strang put his bid in very, very early, but honestly, that would be like throwing you guys into the biggest lion that's in the arena. Welsh is saying, I've chickened out this far, so I'll go for it. I'm no genius, though. Well, I've spent some time talking to WelshToro, and he's got a fairly decent knowledge. I would have to say that that's not going to be easy for you either. There's quite a few others. Michael Hay is shouting quiz. I don't know if he's putting his name forward. Tom R is hoping it's a rum quiz. Tom, it's nice to see you, and my friend, it's always wonderful to see you.
If it's a rum quiz, I'm going to tap out because I am going to get 0 out of 10.
That's right. It's been the same for me. Absolutely. So, yeah, let's give it a go. Welsh, I would love to have you step up and represent the crowd tonight, and I'll take your score. Connor, thank you very much for offering again, but I think you will understand completely. And it's kind of nice to have Connor there because Connor, Hoagie Bear, there's a few other guys that if I had nobody volunteering for the quiz, you've kind of got these guys that are always kind of just there and stand by. And what I try to do as well as the answers come in, I try to kind of read off as many as I can. And I used to do that because the chat, would be hidden after the event. I don't know if that's still valid because you can see the chat afterwards. Yeah, but it's kind of nice to commentate on it as it comes in. What were you saying?
Oh, you can see the chat now on when it goes up.
Yeah, after on the replay now, if you watch this after the event on the replay, the live chat is played back alongside it as well. It's quite fantastic.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, we've just had a donation in from my friends over in the States. Do you know the Scotch 4 Dummies? Yes.
Absolutely.
Of course we do.
I've just had a donation in from those guys. Really enjoying the Top Whiskies entertaining creative videos. There you go.
Thank you, guys, and loving your
thanks,
work
guys.
as well. Giants of the whiskey community.
They really are. They're 4 great guys. They get together every Thursday night, absolute dedication, without fail, and put out a great live show. They do an hour every Thursday night. I had the pleasure of spending time with Drew and Mark from the Scotch for Dummies in Edinburgh when they visited Scotland last year, and it was just a pleasure. A bit like when you and I hooked up in London, Ed. It was absolutely superb.
Yeah.
So that donation that they've sent across to me is actually for you guys. So when the next time you're in Glasgow, I owe you a dram, don't I?
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thank you. And we'll hold you to that, Roy.
Okay. WelshToro is saying my appalling ignorance is about to be revealed. Welsh, I have to be honest with you.
Us two will be much more embarrassing for us.
This quiz may be difficult. And I got a lot of feedback that last week's quiz was just too difficult. And I looked at it, and it's really difficult for me and the Whiskey Rev to pitch. It's difficult to get that balance between a giveaway question and an impossible question, right? You want to have somewhere in between. But let's give it a try anyway. In the last couple of shows, I've been trying to work out a way that I could let people see the quiz question. And it was clunky last week. I failed the week before completely. This week, I think I'm closer. So we're going to give it a try, okay? So I'm going to take scores from Ed and Evan at Top Whiskies versus, and you must recognize WelshToro. He's a little red disc with a black bull on it.
Absolutely.
He would have commented on your videos in the past. He's a lovely guy as well.
Sure.
We
won't be embarrassed to be beat by you.
Sorry?
I said we won't be embarrassed to be beat by him.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
He's going to be
but the most important thing is to remember it's just for fun. You can only get the questions right if you know them. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the question, and you guys type it in. You can confer if you want, but try to keep your discussions off air if at all possible. And just enter it into that chat. Do you have a keyboard in front of you? Can you type?
We do, yeah.
We do.
And enter it in and send it to me. And I'll give the crowd a countdown to hit enter. So the crowd, as normal with these things, type in your answer. Don't send the answer across. Hold your water if you can. And then when I say answer, just send it in. And we should be able to use the latency to our advantage so that we can see it coming in. So I'm going to move the chat across so that I can see the guys clearly. Welsh, if you're ready, I will attempt to pull up the first question. Okay, here we go. Blair Athol Distillery is the spiritual home of the UK's top-selling blended whiskey. What is it called? So Blair Athol is a distillery, a Highland distillery, but there's a blend, and its spiritual home is hosted at that particular distillery. So if you want to type in what you think the answer might be, I can see that you're using pen and paper to confer. That's perfect.
We're very, very good at technology.
Superb. Crowd, 3, 2, 1. Give me your answer. Which blended whiskey has its spiritual home at Blair Athol Highland Distillery? This Powers Johns Lane is a lovely, spicy delight of a dram.
It is really nice. I've already finished mine.
Now, what we should say as well is that it's 46% unchill filtered and it's aged 12 years old, whereas the green spots are not. They're both non-age statement. You need to go to the yellow spot to get an age statement from that range. But they're both made by the same producer. They're both made by Middleton. Okay, WelshToro is ready. Kian is saying bells. John Pallister is saying bells. I've got an answer in from Top Whiskies, by the way, already. Jason Whiskey Wise is saying bells. Whiskey Biker. Hi, Whiskey Biker. Good to see you. Everyone is saying bells. Connor saying Bells, although I thought it was Famous Grouse. Or is that Scotland, not UK, for best-selling blend? Well, they may exchange blows on that, Connor, in terms of the best-selling blend, but I believe Bells to be the best UK selling blend at the minute. The Whiskey Rev should know, because Famous Grouse is made by the company the Whiskey Rev works for, I think.
That sounds like cheating.
I'm sorry?
That sounds like cheating.
That's right. Well, the Whiskey Rev sets the questions, sometimes, some of the questions. So yeah, Hoyt is saying Famous Grouse. McAllen Fine and Rare, good to see you in again, is saying Dewars. Cian is saying, sorry that you jumped ahead, don't worry, I know what it's like, Cian, don't worry about it. Santa Cruz is saying Chivas Regal. Sid Martin is saying Bells. Whiskey Wolf is saying Dewars. And WelshToro is saying he screwed up already.
Don't
worry about it, Welsh. Let's see. The blend that has its spiritual home at the Blair Athol Highland Distillery is, in fact, and I just need to make sure that this will work. Let's see if this. Yes, there we go. Bells. So a lot of you guys actually got it right. Unfortunately, Welsh did not. Welsh, the good news for you is that Ed and Ewan got it wrong as well. They answered Johnny Walker. So it's nothing each.
Even Stevens.
So you live to breathe again, Welsh. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So let's hit up the second question. Single pot still Irish whiskey contains which grain other than malted barley? Now, if you were paying attention, this is kind of a giveaway, because in my monologue earlier, I think I actually mentioned this. In fact, I'm certain I mentioned it. So apart from malted barley, crowd, you can answer in 3, 2, 1, go. Apart from malted barley, can you tell me what other grain is in the mash bill for single pot still Irish whiskey? Okay, we've got Lorenz. Wow, I can't pronounce that name, especially when it's moving so fast. Lorenz has answered unmalted barley. DDI Y Network is saying unmalted barley. Hoyt is saying unmalted. Jason Whiskey Y is unmalted. Everybody's saying unmalted. And WelshToro has answered wheat. Oh dear, but he's admitted that he was guessing. Welsh, you didn't listen to my lecture. You can be forgiven for that. But the other grain is unmalted barley. That's what gives it, apparently, its light spice and its oily texture. So the answer, of course, is indeed unmalted barley. So Welsh, you're still on a duck, and Ed and Evan move a point ahead of you, my friend. Welsh is saying, she's saying bugger. Unmalted barley.
Don't worry, Will. You'll catch up.
Yeah, you will. You'll catch up.
We just paid attention during the lecture.
Sorry?
We just paid attention during the lecture.
That's right. You were paying attention. You were sitting there. You had nothing else to do but. That's right. Okay, boys. Let's go on to question 3. Which single malt is known to be the favourite tipple of Parks and Recreation's Ron Swanson? Which single malt is known to be the favourite tipple of Park and Recreation's Ron Swanson? Ron Swanson has made a pretty shrewd career out of representing this particular whiskey, don't you think?
He's got a really good YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, that's right. 3, 2, 1. Give me your answers, boys. Let them come in. Malted Man Cave, Keith, good to see you in. Fantastic to see you, my friend. Whiskey Scout, good to see you in, Robert, as well. The Whiskey Scout is saying Lagavulin. Thomas Buck, that's a new name. Good to have you in, Thomas. Is saying Lagavulin 16. Sid Martin, Lagavulin. Santa Cruzan, Hoyt Hemp Hill, Jason Whiskey Wise, Tom R, DI Network. This looks like it was a giveaway question.
Oh,
yes.
I thought I was so smart.
So yes, that was one of these easy giveaway ones, wasn't it? That Lagavulin is of course the answer. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, I think there's a video on his YouTube channel that's literally him sitting in like a Chesterfield or or one of these wingback chairs in front of a fire with a dram, and it literally loops for hours and hours and hours on end.
24 hours. Yeah. I literally have a bank of Parks and Recreation clips saved on my computer for future videos.
Have they appeared in any of your videos? Has that appeared in any of your videos yet?
Not yet, but stay tuned because they're all downloaded and they're ready to go.
Well, that's WelshToro has actually started. He's managed to put a point on the board. He did answer Aqvavitae, and he's saying a funny version of 3, 2, 1 right now. Love it. Yeah, there used to be an old 80s quiz show in the UK called oh my god, what was it called? And it was a guy. The presenter was Ted Rogers, and they used to give a countdown 3, 2, 1 like that. And yeah, I realized that I've become that guy. So question 4 is a picture. I need everybody to see this. You'll see the little signpost has been blocked out. Just if you can tell me which distillery this is. Now, it could be tough, but it's one of the most iconic distilleries ever. The Whiskey Rev is saying Dusty Bin. He's saying that Dusty Bin was I think Dusty Bin was that the name of the quiz show? Or was that the kind of giveaway thing? I don't know. Ed, you're quite a bit younger than me. I don't know if you remember the show I'm talking about.
No, it's lost on me, I'm afraid.
Okay, that's right. Just me showing my age. Okay, WelshToro has answered. Have you guys got an answer for me? Can you tell me what?
I'm not sure we can see the video.
Oh, the picture.
Is it that?
Unfortunately, we can only see a thumbnail. The thumbnail does look very, very picturesque.
Ah, okay. So we've found I understand why. Let me see if I don't know how to make that bigger, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at the tiny picture, and I think I might recognize it. But if we get it wrong, then it's because it's tiny.
And do you have you don't have a live muted window open of the?
Well, we would if we were smarter, but we're not.
Okay, don't worry. So can you stab a guess? Yeah, you've put a guess in. I can see that you've put a guess in. Good. I haven't, because obviously what you see is not what's broadcast. What you see is just the live chat going backwards and forwards from us.
That's right.
So yeah, there is a flaw there, isn't there? I mean, this will work perfectly when I don't have a guest, but I need to be careful of the pictures when we have a guest then. Okay, good. So the guesses are coming in. And WelshToro has answered. I think I saw him answer. He said he's got 1 point. Welsh, I'm sure I saw you send her an answer. Yes, he did. He said Hakushu. No, it's a Speyside distillery, Welsh. It's definitely in Scotland. And we have a lot of answers that look like they've got the right answer. We've got the Whiskey Scout, Sid Martin. We've got Daydramming, Andrew. We've got Whiskey Wolf. Connor Strang, of course, Connor. Macallan Finer Rare. Tony Evans. Whiskey Biker, Pat. John Pallister, Kilted Moose. Hoyt Hemphill. Everybody saying Strathyla. And it is, in fact,
of course it is.
Strathyla.
It's on the label.
The iconic twin pagoda roofs.
Yes.
Strathyla Distillery. Yeah. So, unfortunately, you guys answered Glenfiddich, so you both have a 0.
In our defense, it was a really tiny photo, and we could just kind of see a peak.
I wonder if I could have done a screen share or something from my side. No, I'd probably break things if I tried to do that. I apologize. There is one more picture.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that if we lose, it's for technology reasons, and not because we don't know the answer.
This is actually very convenient. It's a get out of jail free card.
I don't appreciate you pointing that out.
Listen, the last pic, the other picture, I don't think you'll have a problem with. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that you'll get it right, but it's not going to be as difficult to pick out as that one. Okay. Okay, let's move on to question 5. Victoriana is a single malt expression released by which distillery? Victoriana. I can see Ed busily sketching away there. He's got an idea. 3, 2, 1, enter. Come on, boys. I'm rooting for you, Welsh. Let's see. Victoriana. Who put out the expression called Victoriana? Okay, they're all pouring in now. We have Daydreaming, Lorenz, Jason Whiskey Wise, Kilted Moose, John Pallister, Connor Strang, Macallan Fine and Rare, wow, it's moving now, John Paul van der Hoven, Whiskey Biker, Cian O'Hara, Daydreaming, technically Loch Lomond, I guess. Well, it's Loch Lomond Group would be right. I have an answer in from... oh, no, I don't have an answer in from the boys. Can you give me an answer, boys? Okay. Wait, Hemphill, Glen Scotia, Sid Martin, Glen Scotia, Thomas Buck, Glen Scotia. Are you starting to see a theme here, boys?
Yeah, I've spotted a theme. Can we retract the answer and submit again?
Now, did you not tell me, actually, that you'd visited Loch Lomond, and in fact, the cooperage beerall that you have is from Loch Lomond Cooperage?
It is, and we did, but that was lost on us, that question.
Okay.
If you were to ask us again, we'd get it right.
Where is the Victoriana expression from?
I'm going to go ahead and say Loch Lomond.
Well, Glen Scotia is part of the Loch Lomond group, absolutely, but it's Glen Scotia is the answer I'm looking for. Victoriana is a non-age statement. Pretty high-end, quite expensive, and really quite delicious expression from Glen Scotia. Good, superb. Question 6. Which of the following distilleries is in Ireland? Okay, so you're just going to get a multiple choice here, A, B, and C. And as I pull these up, you just type in A, B, and C, and then hold off until I ask you to say enter. But only one of the following distilleries is in Ireland. Don't get excited, boys. I think this is trickier than you might imagine.
We got really excited because we only thought there were 4 distilleries in Ireland.
Multi-choice is how he passed his SATs.
That's the only reason I got into university.
Okay, let's see what the choices are. We have Cardrona is A, B is Shane, C is the Shed. A is Cardrona, B is Shane, C is the Shed. 3, 2, 1, give me your answers. And Ed and Evan, I'll ask you to put in an A or B or a C and send it to me.
Unless you...
Thank you, boys. Oh, the answers have coming in. Hoyt Hemphill is saying C. Santa Cruzan is saying C. Tom is saying B. John Paul van der Hoven C. Cian O'Hara C. John Paul van der Hoven looks like he's having a guess. Whiskey Wolf B. Oh, this is splitting people, isn't it? John Pallister B. Welsh is saying Cardrona. Wow. I've just realised, did I take... Welsh got the Glen Scotia one right. Absolutely. Welsh is guessed Cardrona. No idea. He's admitted he doesn't know, but he's guessed Cardrona. It's worth a guess, isn't it, on a multiple choice?
It's worth a guess on multiple choice. It's what my teachers told me.
30% chance of getting it right.
Absolutely. Well, unless it's a multiple choice of A, B, C, and D.
Well, no, but in this case, it was only 3. So
Absolutely, of course. Sorry.
I'm doing my maths on the fly.
So let's see if Welsh is correct, saying Cardrona. My friends at TopWhiskies have guessed C, which is the Shed, I believe. So which of the following distilleries is actually in Ireland? And it is the Shed. Well done, TopWhiskies, and unlucky. It's a shame I missed that high five there. It just didn't click back quickly enough. And unfortunately for my friend WelshToro. Good guess. Good. It's worth a guess, Welsh. But no. Come on, Connor. What's Connor saying? Connor has answered A as well. Wow. It's very, very, very rare to see Connor slip on a banana skin there. Okay, let's go to the next question. Question 7. Which newly relaunched series of single malts features an expression called 7 wood? Now, this is in the news just recently. This distillery has just launched a brand new revamped range, about 6 different expressions, and one of them, bizarrely, is called 7 wood. So they're suggesting there's 7 different types of cask involved in one of the expressions. So if you've any idea, Ed and Evan, punch in your answer. I have an answer locked in from Ed and Evan. 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and answer freely, please, folks at home. How confident are you about this one, boys?
So medium confidence. I've seen a lot of press coverage over a certain brand's launch.
Okay.
So I feel that this is a very informed choice, but it might still be wrong.
Well, it looks like almost everybody is answering the same thing. WelshToro has said Jura, as well as the Whisky Scout, Macallan Fine Rare, Connor Strang, Santa Cruz, and Frank Lampard, Tom R, Kane O'Hara, Whisky Biker, Kilted Moose, Jason's Whisky Wise, John Pallister, Tony Evans, Metal Man. Everyone is saying Jura. But the important thing is, what did you guys say? The answer is Jura. Fortunately, Ed and Evan answered Jura. Well done. That was a bit of a giveaway one. I thought that would be a wee bit trickier than that, but Welsh was very quick and very early to answer that one. Let's move on.
It was a big clue. They really have done a massive social media push. It's been all over Instagram, that lineup of the different bottles. So I think
I was very curious to see, and obviously having not tried them, I don't want to comment too deeply, but a lot of the entry point Juras I felt were always kind of produced in order to meet a price point rather than be of anything that's really engaging and good. And it was curious to see the ABVs and the non-age statement and things, and I wonder. I'll stay open-minded until I try them. But it'd be nice if they've lifted their game a bit. It'd be nice if they've kind of gone a little bit up market. And I know Jura is capable of producing good whiskies, but any Jura that I've tried that's enjoyable and engaging, were unfortunately independents. Mm-hmm. And I don't tend to find much that comes from the distillery that keeps my interest for very long. Welsh is actually saying Jura did a very fine 8 wood a couple of years ago from sparkling wine casks. Wow, an 8 wood. I've not even heard of that one, Welsh. Fantastic. But well done. Let's move on to question 8. And this is a picture. I hope you guys can get close enough to the screen to make out that image. Tell me you can. If you can't, I will DM it to you on Twitter.
Okay, good idea.
You would like that, yeah?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay, it's coming to you momentarily.
Although I suppose if you do that, we won't have the excuse not to get it right.
Yeah, that's right. It's landed in your inbox.
Got it.
So you have that image. And the obvious thing I'm going to ask here is, who is this gentleman? I mean, that's a fine beard. It's a fine beard. But I just want to ask who that is. Any guesses from the crowd? In 3, 2, 1, go. The answers are coming in. I appreciate this is a tricky question, but he is such an iconic guy.
Are you serious?
The WhiskyRev is saying just as well Malt Review isn't here anymore when we brought up Jura. Whiskey Rover or Malt Review and Jura, they are arch enemies. Cian O'Hara said Roy's dad. Thanks, Cian. Okay, we've had a lot of answers coming in. WelshToro is saying, holy shit, the founder of Glenlivet. Whiskey Biker is guessing Alfred Bernard. Good guess. Connor Strang is saying Aeneas Coffey. Kilted Moose is saying no idea. Whiskey Wolf is saying Lincoln. Pat is saying Coffee. The Whiskey Scout is saying John Grant. And Hoyt is saying saw him at the Scotch Whisky Experience. Ed and Evan have guessed that it's Mr. Jameson himself, who was John Jameson, the founder of Jameson, way back when. But is it John Jameson, or is it, holy shit, the founder of Glenlivet, as WelshToro guessed? This gentleman is, in fact, Aeneas Coffey, the guy who I was waxing lyrical about at the start of this live stream. It is Aeneas Coffey. So quite a few got that right. McMillan, Fine and Rare got it right. McAllen, sorry, Fine and Rare got it right. Hoyt Hemphill. I keep laughing at Cian, Roy's dad. So unlucky, guys. This is a very low scoring round. Very low scoring round. Have I made the quiz too difficult?
Very well.
Sorry?
Is that a polite way of saying you've not done very well?
Well, the scores currently, as we go into our 9th question, 2 questions left then, we're actually on 3 apiece. Wow. So it's not high scoring, but it's still exciting. Welsh, have you got a sweat on? Can you do something here, Welsh? Can you pull it out the bag with the last 2 questions? This could be a giveaway question. I'm not sure. Let's give it a go. Question 9 is, what is Ireland's largest distillery? What is the biggest distillery in Ireland? But I guess it's like anything. You only know it if you know it. Crowd. The guys are still scribbling away. In 3, 2, 1, enter. Okay, you've got about 6 or 7 seconds to give me an answer, guys. I see you typing.
We're typing. We're typing.
You are. Okay. I have an answer from Ed. I'm looking for Welsh. Welsh is given. Wow, he was the first guy in. Wow. Welsh came in with an answer straight away, saying Middleton's. Lorenz is saying Middleton. Whiskey Scout is saying Bushmills. Connor is saying Middleton. Santa Cruz and Bushmills. Sid Martin, Middleton. Kilted Moose. Whiskey Throttle is talking to Kilted Moose. Cant Ben Nee. Hi, good to see you in again. Is saying Cooley. Hoyt Hemphill is saying Middleton. Tom R is saying Middleton. Lorenz, Middleton. Kilted Moose is guessing Cooley. Ed and Evan has guessed Irish distillers. The answer, Welsh, is Middleton. Well done, you. Welsh has sneaked ahead, boys. Welsh has sneaked ahead by a point. There's 1 question to go. The only thing you can do now is tie. Which, like I said, it's only for fun. And there's no pride lost going up against these boys usually. And you can see there was a theme there. I think most people knew that was Middleton. A few people guessing things like Cooley and Bushmills. But Middleton is by far the biggest distillery. In fact, all of the pot still whiskies we sampled tonight, all 3, of course, 2 are Green Spot, the Powers, and the other biggest known single pot still Irish whiskey is Redbreast. And all of those are made at Middleton Distillery. They're all owned by the same company. It's quite amazing.
The company technically is called Irish Distillery.
Sorry?
Isn't the company called Irish Distillers?
The owners of Middleton could be Irish distillers. I'm not very sure, actually.
I think that might have been what we were going for.
Okay. Well, what was the question?
No. I accept. I'm willing to accept Middleton was the right answer because that is where it's distilled. But do you think technically Irish Distillers is the conglomerate of all of those distilleries put together?
I've just checked the book, and the owner of Middleton Distillery is indeed Irish Distillers. But if we look at the question...
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think we should get half credit for that, because we went for the owner opposed to the distillery. That's at least half credit, right?
It was close. It was very close, boys. But Middleton is Ireland's largest distillery.
All right.
Good effort. Good effort. They do a decent tour there. I don't know if they do a tour down at Middleton Distillery itself. They probably do, but they kept the old Cork distillery open, and they kept the distillery, or where the distilleries used to be, and the old distillery in Cork, and the old one in Dublin as well, open as visitor centres.
Yeah, so
it's really cool to go along until you get to the end of the distillery tour. I don't know if they do this now, but it was terrible. What they used to do is sit you down, and you'd have a flight of Irish whiskies, really nice Irish whiskies, and you'd be enjoying them and thinking, these are fantastic, wow, superb. And then they'd give you a scotch at the end.
They still do that. If you go to the Jameson Distillery, you do a flight of Jameson, and then you do a scotch at the end, and they ask you, what do you think is better? And inevitably, whoever does it thinks, oh, well, I think that last one was the best one.
But genuinely, I mean, when I was there, the scotch they gave you at the end was really poor. I mean, it was a rough scotch. They weren't even willing to disclose what scotch that it was. And I remember saying to them, well, this could be anything. I mean, you're giving us a nice flight of Jamesons here and just giving an any old scotch. I mean, that's not apples for apples. It's not even fair. And obviously my accent, the woman's just kind of going, yeah.
So I went a couple of years ago, and they had a really nice flight of Jameson, and at the end they gave you a Glenfiddich 12, and everyone who went through said they preferred the Glenfiddich.
Well, that is kind of cool to hear. That is kind of cool to hear. Although, I mean, I think that there are a lot of really, really good Irish whiskies out there. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean it in a bad way. I just mean like the standard Jameson versus the Glenfiddich 12. I mean, I personally prefer the Glenfiddich.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you were sipping a standard Jameson against the Glenfiddich 12, I think it would be no contest. But it's quite an interesting thing. And there was another thing that they said as well, is that we triple distill our whiskey to give it that really clean, smooth, pure aspect, whereas the Scots only distill there twice, to suggest that that's a bad thing. And I felt that was misrepresentative. And I think that they don't really compete. That we're not making enough whiskey right now. There's a market big enough for all, and it's been that way for probably 25 or 30 years. And I think there's no need to use language like that anymore.
Yeah. I agree. They said that the triple distillation filters out all those impurities that you get in Scotch whiskey, which makes it disgusting and undrinkable. It was basically the pitch of the tour person. So
just distill it another time and make vodka. Just continue to do that until there's literally no flavor left.
Highly pure.
Yeah. Okay, superb. There's one question left, and the scores are currently 3 to Top Whiskies and 4 to my friend WelshToro. So the best you guys can do is draw, and I'm not very sure that. Okay, it's a multiple choice, so there's hope. Okay,
33%, Roy. That's 3.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well for us.
It's definitely a 33% chance. It's a 1 in 3 chance. Okay, which of the following is not produced at Heaven Hill? I'm just noticing, by the way, that the Whiskey Rev, we've been on for 2 hours. Rev, if you need to slink off, I know that you've probably got work in the morning. If you need to go, just give me a thumbs up. If you want to hang on for the last few minutes, I'd welcome you to do that. But of course, you're free to go. So just let me know what you would like to do. I realise that I've just kind of kept you hanging around. I apologise. Question 10 is, which of the following is not produced at Heaven Hill? So I'm going to give you multiple choice, and you can let me know which is not produced at Heaven Hill. A is Elijah Craig, B is Larceny, C is Eagle Rare. Clearly, these are all bourbons. 2 are produced at Heaven Hill, and 1 is not. I want the answer for the one that is not. 3, 2, 1. Type in your answers. I have an answer locked in from my friends at Top Whiskies. I'm looking for Welsh Toro coming up. Cian is saying B, said Martin C. Mark, so, wow, I can't even see these things as it goes by. Mark Connor Strang is C, Thomas Buck A, Kino Harabi. They're all over the place. Everybody's all over the place. Welsh is saying Elijah Craig, which is A. And Ed and Evan have answered B. I realised I didn't switch off the screen, so you're still watching this. I'll let you know what the answer is before I switch back. It's Eagle Rare. Gutted. The only good news out of that is that Welsh Toro answered wrong as well. But it does mean that Welsh takes the honours. Elijah Craig.
Well played.
Made at at Heaven Hill. And Eagle Rare is made at Buffalo Trace. Listen, guys, all I can tell you is that I was a wee bit nervous that was a tough quiz that I put together tonight. And I have to be honest that most of the tough questions that time probably lie with me and less so the Whiskey Rev on this occasion. However, Welsh Toro only won by a point. So while there's a defeat, it's not exactly what you'd call a kick-in, right?
It's not. And on a serious point, I do think it takes us back to what we were talking about earlier, the fact that this is meant to be a lot of fun. It's all about community. It's about learning from people in the community that have a fountain of knowledge. So Beaton saw raw from the loss.
Yes.
But philosophical nonetheless.
I'll be honest, I would have liked to have won.
Yes. Well, that's very gracious of you. But I think that is exactly the idea, that it is about learning and things like that. But it's like we said at the start, you only know these if you know them. And I could have put together 10 very, very difficult questions that just so happened to be things that you guys had happened across, or that you'd read about or researched, or that you loved. And if I end up putting in things there that you don't know, even if they're quite easy, you've got no chance. But hopefully what it does do is kind of inspire you and think, wow, I want to find out more about that. I want to find out more about Mr. Coffey and what he did for whiskey. I want to work out more about what this Middleton facility is in Ireland, or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. And like we said, we're all about trying to learn more, and that's part of sort of our whiskey journey, which we hope to bring other people on sort of our journey with us as we learn more and share more with the community.
Well, I have to be honest, after last week, I did get a bit of a hard time for the questions being difficult. And the week before that, there was a couple of really, really difficult questions in there that the Whiskey Ref had thrown in. And it tends to be that he would be the one that would throw in the hardest questions. And I did start to consider, maybe I should soften these. Maybe I should make these questions a bit easier and things like that. But then I thought, well, really? If it is about learning, and someday somebody's going to pitch a quiz to me, and I know that you reap what you sow.
Too true.
So, one day it's going to be me sitting there going, damn it, and hopefully I'm as gracious as you guys, and I can turn around and not swear and not go in a huff and take it and take
we'll
it as well as you guys.
The camera turns off, then we'll go into
yeah, I want to go get both barrels. Meanwhile, Welsh is running around his desk right now doing fist pumps and going, yes. Yes.
Well done, Welsh.
Well done, Welsh. You take the honours tonight, my friend. Well done. Just before we finish up, I realise we've gone over 2 hours. Ridiculous. It always feels like we've got loads of time, and then we just completely run out. The quiz takes a lot of time. Wow, I've just had a donation in from my friend Whiskey Wolf saying, tough quiz. Yes. Question for Roy. Name an Arctic Scotch distillery that use seawater by desalination in their production. Well, Whiskey Wolf, if such a thing exists, I have never heard of it. So yeah, I would not get that question. Can you give us the answer to that, Whiskey Wolf, before you disappear? Tom R is saying, I will make a rum quiz for you. Yeah, there's revenge coming, boys. There's revenge coming. And
I think I'd do all right in a rum quiz, actually.
You fancy that? Well, there you go, Tom. send in your rum quiz, and I'll share it with Evan as well. Go Habs is saying, Aqvavitae, do you ever sleep? I know what you mean. Sometimes it feels like I sleep a lot. I sleep plenty. Don't worry about it, Go Habs. Thank you very much for your concern. Scott is saying good night. Thanks as always, Aqvavitae. Another fine evening. Thank you, Scott. I always appreciate you being there. I love seeing your name in the quiz. We need to get together soon, and thank you for dropping by. WelshToro is saying, well done, guys. Enjoyed your company. He's a lovely fellow, WelshToro. If you ever get the chance to meet him, you'll see what I'm talking about. Listen, before I go tonight, everybody, before I say thanks to my guests, I want to say, I should really say thanks to the patient man that is the Whiskey Rev. He's just sat there monitoring everything in the background. I really like, I always feel better to have the Rev around. It's wonderful to have my buddy there looking out for me. Thank you, buddy, and thanks for sticking with it. I can see you're still in there. 9 p.m. tonight, I think 9 p.m. I'm not sure about this time zone thing. EDT, Evan, is EDT Eastern Daylight Time or something?
Yeah, I'm from California.
All right.
Yes.
So I think they're 5 hours behind us, but My Bourbon Journey is going live at, I think, 9 p.m. Eastern. That's Scott from My Bourbon Journey. He's got a live show tonight. There's a marathon. I'm just the starter. There's a marathon of live shows. My Bourbon Journey from 9 o'clock Eastern tonight. Then at 10 p.m. the Scotch for Dummies. They do it every Thursday at that slot. That's their slot. Every week, Thursday night, Scotch for Dummies, the 4 of them have a live show tonight, and I think they're doing our Big 20 something. And then after the Scotch for Dummies, we've obviously got Telex, the Whiskey Tech as well. So there's plenty of stuff to keep you engaged if you're interested in hanging out and doing some more whiskey geekery for a while. My next live show will be 2 weeks from now, and it'll just be me on my own solo. I'll try and keep it shorter. And that's on the 29th of March. I look forward to seeing you then. Well done to WelshToro. I've just had another contribution in, another donation in from John Paul Vanderhoven. Thanks, Roy. See you. John Paul, so superb for you to drop in again. And thank you very much for your generosity and your nice comments. Eric, wait, I can see Erickson as well. Are the top whiskey gents in California? If so, where? No, Evan is from California. Do you want to answer Eric's question? Eric he's in the Bay Area in California, Evan.
So I'm from Newport Beach originally, but I've been in the UK for about 10 years. So I came over for university. So I've been in the UK for a long time.
So he's a Brit and everything bar the accent in the passport now, right?
Yeah, basically. Except the fact that I sound like the cast of Friends.
That's right. Go Habs is saying thank you. Whiskey Biker is saying thanks. Great show again. Pressman is saying great live stream. Thank you, sir. You're all very, very welcome. It's wonderful to have you in. Whiskey Throttle, my friend Daniel, is saying thank you all for your effort and integrity with another contribution. Daniel, thank you so much for your generosity. Wonderful to have you around here all the time. Daniel, I think, is the type of guy that should probably start up his own YouTube presence. A lovely guy with a huge whiskey collection and a lot of knowledge as well. WelshToro is saying Aqvavitae, thanks for having me. Very enjoyable. No, Welsh, thank you. It's always a pleasure. Whiskey Whistle is saying missed most of this Aqvavitae. So Go Habs was asking me if I ever sleep. Mark from Whiskey Whistle literally sent me a message about 4 hours ago saying he was going to bed. And here he is up in the morning saying, Whiskey Whistle is saying missed most of this Aqvavitae and Top Whiskies. Good work. You too, WelshToro. Kids need their breakfast. Mark's in Korea for 4 months before he moves back to Canada. Wonderful, Mark, for you to drop in and say hello in the morning. Maltman71 is saying, great show, Aqvavitae. See you in a couple of weeks. I'll see everybody in a couple of weeks. I'll pick up. I have nothing. I've actually drained my glass. I'm going to pour one of these cool green spots. I'm going to hold a glass up. Do you want to say goodbye, boys?
Yeah, cheers, everyone. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks, everyone. It's been and thank you for having us, Roy. We really enjoyed speaking with you.
You're welcome here anytime. Enjoy your company, enjoy your content. You're wonderful guys to hang out with. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody in the crowd. You can find Top Whiskies on Instagram as Top Whiskies, on Twitter at Top Whiskies. That's right, boys, on Twitter. And on YouTube, of course, as Top Whiskies. Another donations come in. I just want to mention to DDIY Network has just said, time flies. Thanks for a live stream, Roy. It really does fly, doesn't it? I can't believe it's over 2 hours again. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I was holding up a glass there to say thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. thank you so much. It's a wonderful thing to be able to hang out on these Thursday nights with you. And until next time, Sláinte, Sláinte Va.